You know that moment when you are watching a sad movie and you start to tear up? But it's like you know it's not real. Or when you're absorbed in a book and you lose track of time. So it turns out your brain doesn't really care. It processes fictional emotions the same way it does real ones. This happens because stories activate this crazy thing called our mirror neuron system, which allows us to experience others' pain and joy as if it were our own. Now, this might be why we find stories so irresistible, because they let us live like multiple lives in a single lifetime. But this phenomenon is not new. Long before movies and books, TV shows, Netflix, humans gathered around fires telling tales that captivated their tribes. And it turns out that storytelling has shaped our survival, emotions, and even our brain itself for thousands of years. And that said, let's look a little bit back to the history of storytelling. So storytelling is old as humanity itself. Long before written language, storytelling or speaking was the primary way people passed down knowledge, shared wisdom, and just made sense of the world. Like you've seen cave paintings, like those are stories. There have been oral traditions and myths that are tens of thousands of years old. And it's likely that a lot of early humans told stories to prepare for real-life danger. A tale about a reckless hunter getting eaten by a lion wasn't just for entertainment and to laugh at that guy. It was a life-saving simulation for the listener. I mean, and this is across cultures. You know, there's ancient myths and epics that you might have had to read in high school, like the Epic of Gilgamesh or Homer's Odyssey, and they have stood the test of time because they tap into universal human emotions we all can relate to. Love, loss, ambition, and the search for meaning. But why is it? Why have humans always been so drawn to stories? Why do they hold such power over our emotions and attention? And to answer that, we need to kind of look under the hood, under the skull, and into our brain, into the neuroscience of storytelling. So, when we get lost in a story, some fascinating things are happening, and research has shown that engaging with narratives activate several different neural systems, and we'll talk about each briefly. The mirror neuron system, which we said a little bit earlier, this is what allows us to feel what other characters are feeling when the things we watch or read. And it makes their emotions seem real to us, is from this mirror neuron system. And it's why we cry at sad scenes, laugh at funny bits, and feel that genuine tension during suspenseful storytelling. Now, another part of the brain is activated, or rather not activated, which is the default mode network. Now, this is important. There's a part of the brain responsible for self-referential thinking, this DMN. Now, self-referential thinking sounds like some fancy term, but really what it means is this. What am I going to do tomorrow? Oh, I shouldn't have said that earlier. I got to go to work. What is this? The thinking in your head. Whatever you're doing all day long, that constant kind of mental companion of the inner monologue, that is responsible by the default mode network. I don't know if you just saw my cat jump down, but he was right there. So when we engage in a story, the default mode network, or the DMN, quiets down, kind of reducing that mental noise of our daily worries and helping us escape into that other world fully. We'll talk about more of that later. But another thing is the sensory cortex and motor cortex. Studies show, this is crazy, studies show that when you read about a character running, the part of your brain responsible for physical movement actually is activated, as if you were running yourself, which is why these stories feel so immersive, because we're not just imagining it and watching it. Our brain is actually simulating it. And one groundbreaking study found that reading a novel, people's neural pathways physically changed, and these effects lingered for days, and it was as if they actually lived through the events of the book. And this makes it so that it's not just entertainment. They shape and reshape our brains, expanding our empathy and allow us to experience lives beyond our own. Now, let's go back and talk more about the kind of DMN side of things, where our mind begins to quiet. And because our mind gets to quiet down, this gives us the ability to take a break from our own lives, so to speak, and we kind of get a psychological reset or a refresh over our minds. Because In modern life, we're constantly overstimulated through work, family, all the things we have to do, even our social media, never-ending demands of daily life, constantly keep this DMN activated and keep our thoughts going. We don't get that rest, which is why after a long day and you just want to watch Netflix and chill, that's part of the reason. It's because you get that mental break. The DMN begins to quiet. Another benefit of storytelling is emotional processing. Stories allow us to explore emotions in a safe environment. Research has shown that engaging with fictional narratives actually helps people process their real-life emotions, similar to therapy. To give an example of that, say someone has lost a loved one, and maybe that was a couple years ago, and now you're watching a show that reminds you of that experience, and it brings up all these feelings. And because humans are such social, interactive creatures, that ability to empathize with a person who had a similar experience can be cathartic. There's also empathy training, stories that let us experience different perspectives. They help us understand all different kinds of people in the real world a lot better. And this is why that reading fiction has actually been linked to increased emotional intelligence. You get to understand different ways of thinking, which is the next thing. Cognitive flexibility. Stories expose you to different ideas, different kind of moral dilemmas that you're not experiencing in your own life. Alternative ways of thinking, making us more adaptable and hopefully open-minded. Now, all that to be said, going back to the kind of mental rest aspect, this is where I want to incorporate kind of a little plug for mindfulness. Now, it's amazing to get our little break from our brains at the end of a day or whenever when we watch a show or movie or read a book. But that feeling of getting a break from your brain, you can actually get more of that. You can quiet down this DMN by trying a little bit of mindfulness. You know, whether you're eating, walking, listening to music, whatever you're doing the dishes, whatever you're doing, try to be present and only do that thing. And if you can do that, you get better at it the more you do it. Your DMN begins to quiet and you get more of that kind of relaxed feeling like you get when you're watching Netflix or something. So, storytelling clearly is not just entertainment, it's a fundamental part of what makes us human. From these ancient myths to the modern films and stories, they are like portals into another world, a way to expand our minds and a means to quiet that mental chatter that leaves us pretty exhausted. So the next time you find yourself in a novel or deeply immersed in a movie, remember, it's not just a pastime, but it's a biological and psychological experience, and that there are some benefits. Because in the end, storytelling isn't just telling stories about different people. They help us understand ourselves a bit better as well. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you all next time.